avoiding the engagement between us. Later, both Cindy Green and I fell into the river at the same time. Without the slightest hesitation, he picked up Cindy in his arms, while I was saved by a passing fool. Owing my life to him, I made a vow to marry him in return. Everyone was utterly stunned, because in my previous life, after John saved me from the river, we went through with the engagement. Cindy, however, was rescued by a good-for-nothing thug from the village. That man was completely rotten and wouldn't stop pestering her. Not long after she married him, she threw herself into the river and ended her life. From that moment on, John was like a completely different person. He grew cold and distant toward me. After the economic reforms, he started a business and made a fortune, but he then schemed to have my father framed for embezzlement. My entire family lost everything. When I questioned him, his eyes were full of mockery. "Why pretend to be innocent now?" he said. "If you hadn't clung to the engagement so desperately back then, would Cindy have died so early? She died so miserably. What makes you think you deserve to live well?" In this lifetime, I chose to let go and give them my blessing. But on the day I put on the red bridal veil, I clearly heard him say hoarsely, "I regret it." My promise to marry the fool who saved me became the biggest piece of gossip in the village. "Did you hear? Lily Adams is marrying that simpleton. She must have hit her head when she fell into the river. Maybe he saw her body and she has no choice but to marry him now." My best friend Rachel Moore was so angry her face turned green, but I remained calm. In the end, the outcome would have been the same. Whoever I marry might as well be someone a little foolish. At least someone like that doesn't calculate everything or destroy my whole family. Rachel immediately reached out to feel my forehead. "You must have a fever that fried your brain. Of all people, why would you marry a fool? That bastard John left his own fiancé behind and ran to save Cindy. Even if you don't want to marry John out of spite, there are so many other good men. Like Mike Carter, whose dad's a county official, or Eric Johnson, who's about to be recommended for university. Any of them would be better than a fool." Rachel knew about the engagement between John and me. After I fell into the river, she shouted for him to come save me. In the last life, John chose me. But when he looked back, Cindy had already been pulled from the water by that thug, and he ended up hating me deeply. I still remember vividly the moment my father was wrongfully thrown in prison. In this life, he got his wish. He saved Cindy. As for me, I'd rather marry a pure-hearted fool than a brilliant, vengeful enemy. "It's fine. Danny may be a little slow, but he's really good-looking. Marrying him isn't exactly a loss," I said, "so stop crying over nothing." Rachel couldn't help but smile through her tears, but still glared at me helplessly. Just then, we heard voices outside. It was John and Cindy. Rachel's face fell in annoyance, and she stood up to go drive them away. I gave a faint smile and tugged her arm. There's nothing shameful about my decision. If they dare to show up, I'm not afraid to see them. The curtain lifted. Cindy stepped inside and reached out to grab my hand. "Lily," she said softly, "everyone in the village is saying you're going to marry that fool who saved you. It's all my fault. If I had been a little more careful, none of this would have happened. John wouldn't have needed to rescue me, and this wouldn't have spiraled out like this." I slowly lifted my gaze and met John's eyes by accident. Across lifetimes, we met again. John gently patted Cindy on the shoulder, looking at her with tenderness. "Cindy, you're just too kind. You're the one who matters the most to me, who lives, who dies, who marries whom. That has nothing to do with me." If John had been this open about his feelings in our previous life, I would have rather drowned in the river than let him save me. Back then, when he pulled me from the water, his eyes were as cold as ice in midwinter. "Lily Adams, you're ruthless. Just to force a marriage, you even dragged Cindy down with you." I choked on water and tried to speak, but then I saw Cindy wrapped in John's coat, trembling. "John, maybe Lily didn't mean to do it," she whispered. That one sentence froze whatever warmth was left in his eyes. The day after our wedding, he moved his bedding to the commune dorm. After Cindy died, he plotted and worked relentlessly to destroy my whole family. Thinking about all this, I gave a cold smile. "This is my personal matter. No need for either of you to concern yourselves." Cindy's tears suddenly fell like a string of broken pearls. She grabbed my wrist tightly. "Lily, Are you mad at me? She asked. I know you didn't have an official engagement, but the whole village saw John pull me out of the river. When it comes to love, does it really matter who came first? The one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Why don't we compete fairly? Let's both stay unmarried for now and spend time with him. Once John figures out how he truly feels, then he can decide. I nearly laughed out loud. This was a new society. We live under monogamy. Yet she was dragging out some outdated nonsense about two women sharing one husband, just to disgust me. I watched coldly as the two of them performed their little duet. It became clear they hadn't come to apologize today. They came deliberately to humiliate me, to laugh at me as a pitiful joke. Before I could say a word, John shot me a contemptuous glance. His eyes looked at me like I was something filthy. Cindy? Why even bother talking to her? He said. I've only ever loved you. Just looking at another woman makes me feel dirty. A flicker of smugness flashed across Cindy's face before she quickly replaced it with a look of pitiful innocence. Don't be like that, John. Lily's already suffered enough. I let out a cold laugh and gently ran my fingertips over the embroidered mandarin ducks on my wedding dress. You're right, John. Marriage should be loyal and unwavering. I'm about to marry Danny, and I have no interest in getting entangled with any other man. A flicker of anger crossed Cindy's eyes. Lily, are you really willing to marry a fool? What's wrong with a fool? I asked. At least a fool won't hurt people. He doesn't scheme. John's expression turned dark in an instant. He grabbed Cindy's wrist and stormed off. Cindy stumbled after him and still managed to turn around and flash me a victorious smile. Rachel stomped her foot furiously. Those two bastards came here just to rub it in our faces. She snatched up a broom and aggressively swept the spot where John had stood, as if she could sweep away all the bad luck he brought with him. John, Cindy, and I were all set to participate in a group wedding organized by the commune's production team. I wasn't fighting for status, but I wouldn't lose face either. I dug out all my savings and used them to buy red fabric and sew my own wedding dress. Every delicate stitch seemed to sew in the bitterness from 2 lifetimes. Suddenly, the ringing of a bicycle bell came from the village entrance. It was Mrs. Wang, the most famous matchmaker in the county. Big day for Lily Adams! She shouted at full volume, drawing half the village over to see the commotion. Behind her bike were 4 strapping young men, all wearing brand new blue work uniforms. Each of them carried camphorwood boxes adorned with bright red double happiness characters. The one in front held an item wrapped in red silk, cradling it like a priceless treasure. Make way. Move aside, Mrs. Wang shouted, directing the crowd like a conductor. This is a rare item. When the red silk was pulled away, the crowd instantly erupted. Oh my lord, cried Mrs. Li, slapping her thigh in shock. It's a Shanghai brand sewing machine. All 3 functions, totally complete. Mrs. Wang proudly began counting on her fingers. A Forever brand bicycle, a Shanghai wristwatch, and a Peony brand radio, she announced, drawing out the words. All of them just came in. Hot items from the county supply store. More and more villagers gathered, chattering nonstop. Didn't they say she was marrying a fool? Someone said. This wedding display's fancier than those of government officials. Tsk, tsk, tsk. Maybe they're just putting on a show. Bet it's her family's dowry being passed off as betrothal gifts. That's city folks for you. They know how to show off. A few bachelors in the crowd were so envious they rubbed their hands together, sighing. If I'd known, I'd have jumped in the river myself. This isn't just marrying a bride, one said. It's marrying a gold nugget. Looking at all the wedding gifts, even I was puzzled. Before I could ask for an explanation, Cindy squeezed through the crowd on John's arm, making her way to the front. She stared at the dazzling array of wedding gifts, and a trace of jealousy flashed in her eyes. Then she raised her voice deliberately so everyone around could hear. Lily, she said sweetly, as children, we should understand our parents' struggles. Even if you're marrying a fool, there's no need to put on such a grand show, completely draining your family's savings, just to keep up appearances. She glanced at the gifts with a pointed look. All of this will have to be paid back eventually. The villagers immediately began whispering among themselves, and the looks they gave me changed completely. Turns out she's just a wasteful woman, someone muttered. These educated youths from the city really don't know how to manage money. I'm telling you, he's the real fool here, said another. Who else would empty out their whole savings to marry an idiot? A few of the village bachelors began jeering, their tones full of mockery. Damn, if I'd known, I would have pretended to be a fool too. Maybe I could have bagged myself a city girl. Exactly, that Lily Adams probably got her brains scrambled from the river water. Everyone around me was laughing loudly. In the front of the crowd, John Mitchell stood with his arms crossed, a cold smug smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Listen up, Lily, he sneered. Cindy's the only woman I'll ever marry. As for you, he looked me up and down with disdain, like he was examining a cheap bargain bin item. Even if you cling to me for the rest of your life, I'll never give you a title. At most, if you stay single your entire life, we might let you into the Mitchell family shrine after you're dead. Cindy immediately put on a concerned expression and gently tugged at John's sleeve. Don't say that, John. Lily's already pitiful enough, rescued by a fool, and now she's giving up all her family's savings. John let out a cold chuckle. Lily Adams, do you really think marrying a fool will bring you a good life? Look at him, he's so slow he probably doesn't even know what happens on a wedding night. You're basically marrying into widowhood. Might as well stay single. I stared back into his eyes, cold and unwavering. Who I marry, or whether I marry at all, is none of your business. Danny saved my life. Even if he's a fool, I'm perfectly willing to be with him. John scoffed. You're really losing it, Lily. Thirsty for a man to the point you think a fool is some kind of prize? Cindy put on a worried face. Lily, life won't be easy married to a fool. If you run into trouble later on, don't feel embarrassed to come to us. We're all educated youths. We'll help however we can. The villagers nodded and murmured in agreement. Such a kind girl, that Cindy, someone said. No wonder she found someone like Accountant Mitchell. It's karma. Yeah, another added. Unlike some people, proud and haughty one day and marrying a fool the next. What's wrong with a fool? I said sharply. At least a fool is kind-hearted. He doesn't plot, doesn't manipulate, he doesn't destroy families and lives. I swept my eyes across the finger-pointing villagers, too tired to argue anymore. Turning to Mrs. Wang, I said, Auntie, let's move the betrothal gifts inside. She gave me a mysterious wink and signaled the young men to carry the sewing machine and other items into the yard. I pulled her aside and whispered, What's really going on here? Where did Danny get the money for all this? Mrs. Wang grinned wide enough to show every tooth and lowered her voice. You'll understand soon enough. Just wait. The night before the group wedding, I was doing a final check on my wedding dress when I suddenly heard a soft creak at the window. I looked up, and John Mitchell's silhouette was clearly visible on the window paper. Lily, he said in a low voice, his tone laced with a familiar, unresolved tension. Are you really going to marry that fool? I let out a cold laugh. What, you didn't think I would? Isn't this exactly what you wanted? There was a pause. His shadow stretched long across the wall under the moonlight. After a moment, he finally spoke again, his voice hoarse. I'm not who you think I am. It's just, if I hadn't saved Cindy that day, her life would have been ruined. My heart sank. The needle and thread in my hands stopped. So that's what it was. No wonder she always looked at me with guilt. No wonder, on that icy river, he swam to her without a second thought. But this is another life now. He's already gotten what he wanted. So why is he coming to me? His silhouette leaned closer to the window, and his voice suddenly softened. Lily, listen to me, John said softly. Marrying that fool will only ruin your life. Just wait. Once I've settled things with Cindy, I won't turn my back on you. The needle and thread in my hands slipped to the floor with a faint clatter. I stared in shock at his blurred silhouette on the window paper. Just a few days ago, he had stood before the whole village declaring that Cindy was the only woman he would ever marry, that even glancing at another woman made him feel dirty. And now this? What was he trying to do? I clenched my wedding dress tightly, the fabric crumpling into my palm. Memories from my past life surged back like a flood. My father's slumped figure as he was taken away after being accused, my mother's eyes swollen from crying blind, and the child who never got to be born. You don't have to trouble yourself, I said, voice cold. Whether I live well or not has nothing to do with you. I threw the window open and stared him down, his face twisted with confusion and desperation. Lily, we shared something in our youth. I always saved a place for you in my heart. Don't act out of spite. Wouldn't life with me be better than marrying that fool? You're absolutely right, I replied. Even if I marry a fool, it's still better than being involved with you in any way. John's expression changed instantly, his face contorting with fury. Lily Adams, don't be ungrateful. Fine, marry the fool if you want, but don't come crying later. His footsteps soon vanished into the night, but inside me everything felt more clear than it had ever been. I snipped the final thread of my wedding dress. The cursed entanglement of 2 lifetimes, like that thread on the floor, was finally cut, and didn't need to be tied again. As dawn approached, my reflection in the mirror showed a pale, weary face. The red of my wedding dress was sharp against the morning light, but I still hadn't put it on. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew this was the only way to truly end whatever was left between John and me. Lily, Rachel burst through the door, breathless and wide-eyed. You won't believe what's posted at the commune. Quick, look, this is about Danny's real identity. I set my wooden comb aside and turned to her. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, the first time I'd seen her so genuinely happy since I chose to marry Danny. What identity? I asked, taking the large, still ink-scented poster from her hands. Morning light streamed through the paper window, illuminating the signature at the bottom. Battle Hero, Zachary Wayne. Beneath the headline was an old yellowing photo. A young officer in a crisp military uniform stood proudly on a podium. In his features, I could still see the honest, simple face of Danny. My hand trembled. The newspaper fell to the ground with a soft rustle. The flood of 75, Rachel said, bending down to pick it up, her voice shaking. He was struck on the head by a collapsed beam while rescuing 3 kids from the supply depot. After that, suddenly, noise erupted outside. I opened the window and saw Danny, Zachary Wayne now, being surrounded by a crowd of villagers. His faded army uniform was covered in medals that gleamed under the rising sun. Lily, he said, his voice no longer stammering. It was soft, warm, and full of tenderness. When I saved you in the river that day, something in me woke up. It was like waking from a dream, a very long dream. Rachel whispered excitedly into my ear. The doctor said the shock of saving you triggered his memory return. Staring at Zachary Wayne, no longer the simple, slow man, but a hero who had once fought with honor. I was stunned, overwhelmed with joy. He reached out his hand toward me. Without hesitation, I placed mine in his. His palm was broad and warm, giving me a sense of security I had never known. The crowd watching at the door exploded with chatter. The smirks that had been waiting to witness a joke froze on every face. Oh my lord, that fool, he's actually Zachary Wayne, the battle hero. Lily Adams really hit the jackpot, got dumped by John the accountant, and landed a national hero instead. Exactly. I knew something was up with those wedding gifts. What kind of fool has that kind of money? Turns out the guy's been hiding all along, a real war hero. I heard Zachary Wayne's earned 3 first-class honors. His monthly pay must be several $100. Lily's gonna live like a queen, 100 times better than if she stayed with that John. Old Mr. Grant, puffing on his pipe, passed by and raised his voice deliberately. Weren't there people laughing at Lily for marrying a fool? Well, now who's the real fool? I sat on the back of Zachary Wayne's bicycle, my arms wrapped gently around his waist. His back was strong and upright like a pine tree. The wind caught his worn army coat, making it billow like a banner behind us. A faint scent of soap lingered in the air. In this life, heaven had not treated me unfairly after all. It had given me a rare and precious gift. A man once thought to be a fool who would leap into a raging river for me. A hero who had risked his life to protect others. A husband whose presence filled me with peace. As the wedding procession approached the stone bridge at the entrance of the village, we happened to run into John Mitchell and Cindy Green walking side by side. John looked up and saw Zachary Wayne riding a brand new Forever brand bicycle. For a moment, he didn't even recognize him. What? He muttered, squinting at Zachary's crisp military uniform and the shining medals on his chest. Mrs. Wang raised her voice deliberately. Accountant Mitchell, don't forget your manners. Today is Lily Adams' big day too. John's face went ghostly pale. What did you say? He snapped. That's a lie. There's no way Lily would marry someone else. Trembling, John stumbled forward, eyes wide as he caught sight of me in full bridal attire, seated on the back of the bicycle. His eyes welled up with tears. I shot him a cold glance and turned my head away. In this life, he had gotten what he wanted. He was marrying Cindy. He would never again have the chance to ruin me or my family. Suddenly, John threw his arms out to block the bicycle's path. "Lily?" he shouted, his voice hoarse and cracking. "Are you really gonna marry him? This fool?" I frowned, unsure what he meant by that. "What's the matter, John?" His lips trembled violently. "Lily, don't marry him," he pleaded, and suddenly reached out to grab my arm, but Zachary immediately stepped forward and blocked him. "Please step aside," Zachary said firmly. "Don't delay our ceremony." John clenched his jaw as if making some desperate decision. "Zachary Wayne, there's a misunderstanding between Lily and me. She can't marry you." The surrounding villagers fell into stunned silence. None of them expected John to have the audacity to try and sabotage a military wedding in public. Zachary smiled calmly, then turned to me. "Lily, do you want to go with him?" John looked at me with a pleading expression, eyes shimmering with tears. I met his gaze and shook my head, firm and unwavering. "No, I don't want to." John staggered back a step, nearly falling, disbelief etched across his face. Zachary let out a quiet laugh. "You heard her. Lily doesn't want to go with you." He paused. "Plenty of men have tried to crash a wedding before, but not many would dare to hijack a bride from a soldier, on the street." Then he pedaled forward, taking me with him. John suddenly lunged as if he'd gone mad, but several strong young men from the village rushed in to hold him back. "Lily," he roared, his voice broken and desperate. "Have you forgotten everything we've been through? How can you marry someone else?" I didn't look back. I only tightened my arms around Zachary's waist. His warmth seeped through the fabric of his uniform, grounding me more than anything else in the world. At this point, what so-called past feelings did John and I even have left? In our previous life, he didn't care about history or emotion when he ruined my entire family. But now, suddenly, he wanted to play the role of the man who loved too deeply? No. He didn't want me back because he loved me. He just couldn't stand to see something he once held in his hand become someone else's treasure. That evening, after we received our marriage certificate, Zachary and I sat side by side under the old locust tree at the edge of the village. He gently touched the line on the certificate that read, "Married by mutual consent." I hesitated, unsure whether to tell him about my past with John. But before I could speak, he gently held my hand. "You don't have to say it. It wasn't your fault. I understand." I turned to look at his steady profile. "Then, why were you willing to marry someone you barely knew?" Zachary gazed out over the golden wheat fields. His voice was soft. "That day at the river, I saw you nearly swept away while trying to save a drowning child. Later, when you were delirious from the fever, you kept crying out to your father, telling him to run. And I thought, how much pain must this girl carry in her heart?" A locust leaf drifted down and landed on our joined hands. He continued, "Then I saw you teaching the village kids to read, hauling water for the elders. And I thought, even if I really had stayed a fool for the rest of my life, living beside someone like you, that would have been more than enough." "Zachary." My voice trembled. I wanted to say something, but the words caught in my throat. How could I tell him that, at first, I approached him only to escape the tragedy of my past life? He seemed to sense my unease. Zachary's broad palm gently wrapped around my trembling fingers. "Lily," he said softly, pointing toward the swallows returning to their nest in the distance. "Birds never ask why they chose a certain branch to build their home. Flowers don't question why the sunlight shines on them. Some things, some connections, don't need a reason." A single tear dropped onto our joined hands. I took a deep breath and made the decision to tell him the truth. "At first, I did intend to use you." To my surprise, he chuckled, his voice calm and steady. "I know, but I believe sincerity can win sincerity." As twilight deepened, the first star sparkled on the horizon. I reached out to smooth the creases in his uniform and said clearly, word by word, "From now on, you're the only one in my heart." The next day, on our way to the commune, village gossip buzzed even louder than usual. "Oh my, you should have seen Aunt Wang," someone exclaimed. She was sifting rice while ranting about how John Mitchell got so drunk outside the youth camp last night that bottles were scattered everywhere. Cindy Green smashed up their wedding bowls in anger. Another whispered, "I heard John didn't even try to calm her down. They fought all the way past midnight." Near the grain-drying shed, John was hunched over, writing in the account ledger. Deep bruises circled both his eyes. Cindy came over with lunch, her eyes swollen from crying. The moment they saw each other, sparks flew again. "You should have seen the chaos in their wedding room," someone cackled. The bride screamed that she was going back to her parents, and the groom just sat at the door chain-smoking. Is that a wedding or a declaration of war? I was bent over bundling rice stalks when a shadow suddenly fell over me. Zachary had silently appeared behind me, holding out a small hand fan woven from straw. "Take a break," he said. The metals on his uniform glinted in the sunlight so brightly that John Mitchell, standing not far away, quickly turned his face to the side. Old Mr. Grant walked by, tapping his pipe and saying loudly, "Now this is what a real life looks like. Some people, they don't know a blessing when they've got one." Cindy's muffled sobs drifted faintly from the direction of the newlyweds' home. But Zachary and I exchanged a knowing smile and returned to our work. In the golden waves of the rice field, our shadows leaned quietly into one another. Early the next morning, I was hanging laundry in the yard when Cindy suddenly stormed in. Her hair wild and eyes red. She pointed a trembling finger at me and shrieked, "You vixen! It's because of you that John won't even look at me anymore." Just as I was about to speak, Zachary stepped in front of me. His tall frame blocked her completely, and Cindy's arrogance instantly deflated by half. "Cindy Green," Zachary said, his voice calm but commanding, "watch your mouth. Interfering in a military marriage is a punishable crime." Cindy choked, unable to find a response. She opened her mouth to start another tantrum when John came rushing in. His face was gray and his eyes bruised and bloodshot. "Let's go home," he said, grabbing Cindy's arm, but she slapped him hard across the face. "Whose name were you calling last night? Lily Adams. Even in your sleep all you said was Lily Adams. What am I to you?" She clung desperately to the wooden gate, refusing to move. "I'm not leaving. Not until this vixen explains herself." John tried to pry her fingers off the gate, drenched in sweat. "Don't embarrass us like this." "Embarrass?" Cindy suddenly let out a hysterical laugh. She reached into her blouse and pulled out a pair of scissors. "You want to see real embarrassment?" She raised the scissors and made to slash her wrist. The crowd that had gathered pointed and murmured, "Only 3 days into the marriage and she's already trying to off herself. They say their wedding night was a total flop. What sin must John Mitchell have committed in a past life?" John's face darkened like thunder. Without a word, he grabbed the struggling Cindy and slung her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. One of her shoes flew off and she kept cursing loudly. "Put me down. John Mitchell, you heartless bastard. This is all your fault." As they passed the grain-drying yard, Cindy suddenly reached out and grabbed a cornstalk. Her whole body, along with the cornstalk, fell straight into a mud pit. John reached down to help her, but she yanked him so hard he stumbled too. The brand-new military-style trousers he was wearing ripped straight up the thigh with a loud tear. "Serves them right," Auntie Wong spat. "Filthy couple. Instant karma." I stood at the gate, watching the two of them limp away under the villagers' jeers. Zachary gently took my hand. "Don't look. They're not worth it." His hand was warm and dry, steady in a way that made my heart feel completely at peace. In the distance, the chaos from the Mitchell household still echoed faintly, but it felt like we were worlds apart now. As the days passed, John Mitchell's harassment only grew more aggressive. On the day of the autumn harvest, while Zachary had gone to a county meeting, John blocked me in the grain-drying yard. His beard was unshaven, and he was holding a bunch of wild roses, my favorite flowers from my past life. "Lily," he said, his voice trembling, "I know you came back too. Heaven gave us another chance. It must mean we're supposed to fix what went wrong, to make up for the regrets of the last life." I let out a cold laugh and tore the roses apart, petal by petal, crushing them into the mud beneath my feet. "John Mitchell, you're truly disgusting now." His eyes reddened instantly. "I know you hate me, but I'm still me, whether it's the version that ruined your family or the one that didn't marry Cindy? You've already gotten everything you wanted, I cut him off sharply. You didn't destroy my family this time, you're with Cindy Green, so why are you still chasing me? Or are you just incapable of ever being satisfied, greedy and shameless to your core? It was like he'd been struck by lightning. He staggered back 2 steps. Just then, I heard the ringing of Zachary's bicycle bell from down the road. John suddenly lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. Come with me, right now. I'll give everything up for you. Let go of me. I yanked my arm free. Everything you have now. I pointed at Cindy in the distance, frantically searching for him like a madwoman. That's all you've got left. Zachary approached with confident strides, the metals on his chest gleaming under the sunlight. At the sight of him, John shrank back like a rat seeing a cat and instantly dropped his hand. Accountant Mitchell, Zachary said in a calm yet commanding tone, if you keep harassing my wife, I'll report your misconduct to the party. John's face turned ashen, but he still stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Lily, look me in the eye and tell me there's truly nothing left in your heart for me. I looked him squarely in the face. There's nothing. Then I turned and took Zachary's arm. This is my husband, my hero. He's the only one who's ever had a place in my heart. After that, John gave up chasing me and sank into a life of drinking and despair. His accounting work suffered, and Cindy, watching him deteriorate, only grew more furious and hateful. One crisp autumn evening, I returned from our garden with a basket in my arms and saw Cindy lurking suspiciously by our courtyard wall, whispering to none other than her ex-husband from the last life, Dogface Wayne. A cigarette dangled from Wayne's lips, and he had a filthy grin on his face as he occasionally peeked into our yard. I tiptoed behind the haystack and heard Cindy's voice through clenched teeth. Tomorrow night, the whole village will be watching the movie at the grain yard. That's your chance. Drag him into the shed behind the hill. Once it's done, I'll give you 20 yuan. Wayne chuckled, sleazy and vile. You really hate the guy that much, huh? Cindy's voice was cold as ice. If it weren't for him, John wouldn't be like this. If I can't have him, then neither can she. I gripped my basket tightly, my nails digging deep into my palm. Well played, Cindy. You couldn't keep John's heart, so now you're blaming me. The next morning, I deliberately went to wash clothes at the river, pretending to run into Cindy by chance. She was crouched downstream, slamming her laundry paddle into the water like she was pounding my skull. Cindy girl, I said with fake concern, you look terrible. Didn't sleep well last night? She jerked her head up, eyes sharp as knives soaked in poison. Mind your damn business. I wrung out a piece of clothing slowly. I heard John's been running to the county a lot lately. Could it be that? Shut up, she snapped, standing so fast she splashed water all over her legs. Don't get cocky, Lily, she growled. Just because you married a war hero doesn't make you special. I smiled without replying, hoisted my basket, and turned to walk away. Sure enough, I heard her spit harshly behind me. Just you wait and see. By evening, the village loudspeakers began playing the trailer for the movie. I stood at the window, watching as Cindy Green sashayed her way toward the grain-drying yard, dressed to impress. She even glanced back and gave Dogface Wayne a wink. Everything was clearly arranged. I turned to Zachary, who was sharpening a sickle. All the signals in place? He looked up, his expression calm and resolute. The militia squad is already stationed behind the hill. I've also notified the commune police. Are you sure you want to act as bait yourself? I smiled easily. If I don't see Cindy get what she deserves with my own eyes, how could I possibly sleep well at night? Halfway through the film, I pretended I needed to use the restroom and quietly slipped away toward the secluded outhouse. Just as I rounded the grain barn, Dogface Wayne and another local thug jumped out of the shadows, grabbing me roughly by the arms, one on each side. The stink of alcohol on Wayne's breath hit me. Hey city girl, he slurred, let me take you somewhere real fun. I feigned panic and struggled. Let me go. What are you doing? Don't be scared, sweetheart, he smirked, his greasy hand reaching for my face. You'll enjoy it soon and... He didn't even finish his sentence. A beam of flashlight burst through the darkness. Zachary and 3 militia officers charged out, rifles raised, their barrels gleaming cold under the moonlight. Get those bastards, Zachary shouted. Wayne's legs gave out. He pissed himself on the spot. The other thug tried to flee, but was taken down with a sweeping leg from one of the militiamen. News of Dogface Wayne's arrest spread through the village like wildfire. Before sunrise the next day, his parents and a group of furious relatives were already camped out in front of Cindy Green's house. "Cindy, you bringer of bad luck," Wayne's mother wailed, collapsing onto the ground and slapping her thighs. "If my son goes to jail, I'll never forgive you." Cindy had just opened the door when someone hurled a full bucket of pig slop right at her. The stench was unbearable. Wayne's sister lunged forward, yanking Cindy's hair. "Slut! Can't keep your own man in check, so you drag my brother down?" A crowd quickly gathered. Cindy wiped her face in a panic, her hair a tangled mess, her floral blouse torn wide open. She glanced around frantically, then suddenly spotted John Mitchell walking past the alley entrance. "John," she screamed, grasping at hope. "John, help me." But he didn't even pause. He just kept walking toward my house, carrying a net bag with 2 cans of fruit and a packet of brown sugar, high-demand items from the supply co-op. "Lily," he called softly, knocking on my courtyard gate, deliberately gentle. "I heard what happened last night. I brought you something?" "Get lost," Zachary said, stepping out of the house before I could respond. John immediately took 2 steps back, but still wouldn't give up. "I just came to check if Lily was hurt." At that moment, we heard a blood-curdling scream from the distance. I turned and saw Cindy being pinned to the ground by Wayne's relatives. Her face was covered in scratches, her clothes in shreds, yet her eyes were locked on us, especially on the bag in John's hand. Her gaze was venomous, like a blade dipped in poison. "John Mitchell, are you even human?" she shrieked, suddenly exploding with rage and ripping free from the people holding her. "I did everything for you, and now—" A loud slap cut her short. John's face was stone cold. "You crazy bitch. If you ever so much as lay a finger on Lily again, I swear I'll destroy you." Cindy clutched her cheek, eyes wide with disbelief. Her lips trembled. Then she let out a wild, animal-like scream and launched herself at John, clawing at his face. "I ruined people for you. I humiliated myself for you, and this is how you repay me?" Her nails dug deep, drawing red gashes across John's face. Villagers pointed and whispered, some even cracking sunflower seeds as they watched. "Dog eat dog," Auntie Wong said with a smirk. "All fur, no bite." The chaos ended only when the militia, alerted by the commotion, came to take Cindy away for questioning. She was led off to the commune in complete disarray, hair undone, eyes vacant, still muttering, "It's Lily Adams. It's all her fault." As for John Mitchell, he slinked away under the villagers' scornful stares. But I knew, from the kind of man he was, it wasn't over yet. Sure enough, that same night, when I got up to use the restroom, I noticed a dark figure squatting outside our courtyard wall. It was John Mitchell. Empty liquor bottles were scattered at his feet. "Lily," he slurred, his voice thick with alcohol. "I know you can hear me. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." I gently pulled the curtain closed. Behind me, Zachary's warm arm wrapped around my shoulders. "Do you want me to go out there and send him away?" "No need," I said, leaning into his embrace. Outside, John's drunken sobs continued through the night, but compared to the pain I'd endured, this pitiful bit of remorse didn't even count as interest. Zachary's arms tightened around me. The faint scent of soap on him gave me a deep sense of peace. In the distance, I could hear the rhythmic beat of the production team's night shift, thump-thump like a funeral bell tolling for the past. Later, I heard that Cindy Green had been sentenced to labor reform for inciting criminal activity. One stormy day, she tried to escape and fell into a ravine. She was left paralyzed, confined to bed for the rest of her life. As for John Mitchell, his constant drinking led to major accounting errors. He was eventually demoted and sent to the most remote forest station for manual labor re-education. And me? I became Zachary's wife. I still remember the day he rushed home from the county, beaming with joy, holding up a sheet of paper stamped with a bright red seal. "The organization gave us a county house," he exclaimed. Sunlight streamed through the glass window and fell across the reassignment order. He had been appointed deputy director of the county military affairs department. I was assigned as a technician at the newly built textile factory. When we moved, the entire village came to see us off. Everyone was talking at once, offering congratulations. The phrase I heard most was, "We always knew you two were a perfect match. 10 times better than those 2 dogs. Our new home had a small courtyard. Zachary planted a pear tree in the center. "It'll bloom next spring," he said, "and when it does, I'll hang a swing under it for you." Every weekend, we'd ride bicycles to the river. He fished while I read. If we ran into someone from the county, they'd always greet us respectfully. Deputy Director Zhao, Technician Shu. And every night, when the world was quiet, I would rest in his arms and listen to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, always thinking of that morning I fell into the river. Life had given me a second chance, not so I could drown in revenge, but so I could meet the man who was willing to dive into freezing waters for me. Outside our window, the pear tree sprouted new buds, swaying gently in the moonlight. And all the pain from my past life finally became nothing more than a